Yep, it says that you're
Okay,
recording now.
there we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So we're going to get started with this Zoom call with our intro to SUSTA. I am Missy Lindsay with the marketing department. I'm the senior marketing coordinator with SUSTA. And on the call today, I have Alistair Perez, who is a marketing coordinator with SUSTA as well. I'm going to talk about some of our rules and guidelines regarding SUSTA and the Costshare program, and Alistair is going to focus on the global events portion of the webinar. So we are excited to have you all join. We will be answering questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to either send me a chat or ask any questions that you may have regarding the information we're going over, and we'll definitely make time after we're finished to answer any of your questions or concerns regarding SUSTA. Okay? So just gonna get started and basically tell you a little bit about who we are. I know some of you are very familiar with SUSTA already, but for those of you who are not, just to let you know, SUSTA is an organization that's funded by the USDA. Each year we're allocated money through the Farm Bill to help small US companies get a leg up in international markets and advertising and promoting your products through our two programs, or with the help of our two programs. We do have a new program that's been added to the two programs that we're going to focus on. It's called the ATP, the Agricultural Trade Promotion Program, which now allows us to work with companies that are 3 times the normal small business guideline standards that we used to focus on solely. So if you do have a company that's considered a little bit larger than small, still give us a call and we can still work with you now with that additional funding. Keep in mind that the ATP program mimics the Costshare program, so the things that I'm going to go over with Costshare can also be utilized the same way with ATP funding. So just to kind of give you a background on the states that we can work with. Basically, the USDA took the United States, cut it in 4. So our section is the southern eastern portion of the United States. So that's going to include states from Texas up to Maryland, down to Florida, including Puerto Rico. We do have sister organizations that work with companies and have the same type of programs that we offer. They may be called something different, but they're still able to assist companies the way we do as well. So if you ever have any colleagues or anyone in a neighboring state or in a state that doesn't fall under our member states, please feel free to send them our way so we can guide them to the direct state regional trade group. We do work with each of the Department of Agricultures in all of these states. These ladies and gentlemen really help us meet companies like yourself. They also act as activity managers for some of the events that Alistair is going to go over. We would not be able to meet all of you and have these great events without the help of the Department of Agriculture, so they're a great resource, and we do appreciate our partnership with them working with SUSTA. So because we are a government agency, there are some guidelines and requirements that companies have to meet in order to move forward. So we need companies, again, to be headquartered in those member states that I mentioned. Again, we can still work with companies that are 3 times the normal size limit that we're used to working with. And because we're trying to get companies to have sales outside of the US or meeting international buyers, it's important that you have at least $50,000 in sales if you plan on promoting your product to international markets. There are some price points that are lower that companies can work with us through the global events program area, and Alice is going to go over that as well. But the focus is to make sure that you can meet the demand of an international buyer. So a lot of the companies that we work with, they're in their local Kroger or Public or H-E-B or Rouse's we have here in Louisiana. They're in stores in neighboring states and they're looking to branch out into international markets. So that's the kind of companies that we're looking for. I always say, you have to crawl before you walk, you have to walk before you run. SUSTA ideally wants a company that's in that walking stage. We do work with manufacturers, with growers, with farmers, with export management companies. The important thing is to have a value-added branded product. And then when you're promoting your product, you're going to want to make sure, if it's in an international market, that somewhere visible on your packaging and labeling, separate from your address, you're going to want to have either made in USA or product of USA. If you live in Florida and you want to promote that it is a Florida product, that's great. We love that. Just make sure that you have Florida spelled out. International buyers may not know that FL means Florida, so that's really important. I always tell companies it's really up to your discretion. I've seen companies a few spaces down, separate from the address, in the same font with the Made in USA. I've seen some companies elect to do the Made in USA flag like you have here to the right, promoting that it is a US product. For some companies, that's very important. We have a few whiskey companies out of Kentucky and Tennessee, and that's important that they showcase that this is a US whiskey product. So it's really up to your discretion, but the purpose is to make sure that these foreign buyers know that these are US products and this is a US a branding initiative. We work with all sorts of products. I mentioned whiskeys, distilleries, we work with breweries, we have sauces, seasonings. We even work with horticulture companies. We've had Christmas tree companies in our program in the past. The goal is or the basis is to have it be an agricultural related product. And that is important that 50% of the products in the ingredients contain US ag ingredients. So we've had companies, for instance, let's say I had a sauteed chicken mix and I put all these peppers and seasonings in it. As long as 50% of the ingredients are grown in the US, it's okay that the peppers and the other seasonings that are added to it are not. But the focus is to get those US ag products and ingredients accounted for 50% of your brand and you're promoting. So those are pretty much the regulations that we do have. And like I said, you must have to be promoting a specific brand. And with the packaging and labeling, that is going to be important. If you don't currently have that on your packaging and labeling, let us know. And there are ways that we will be able to work with you if you wanted to put a temporary label or a wet ink dry stamp until you print new labels. But like I said, if you plan on promoting it in an international market, you're going to want to make sure that you have that on here. So these are the other two programs that the two programs that we work with, Global Events and Costshare. Alistair is going to start with Global Events, and then I am going to lead back in with 50% Costshare.
Awesome, thank you, Missy. So yeah, with the global events, we kind of have, traditionally, we've had three categories. We have the inbound trade missions, outbound trade missions, and international trade shows. Each one of these categories of global events are kind of catered for a company that might be at a different stage, at a different level in terms of exporting their products. So the first one, inbound trade missions. These are great for companies that are kind of dipping their toes in the waters of exporting. And the reason being, they are relatively inexpensive. Inbound trade missions are $25 to participate. And these take place within one of the SUSTA states, within the SUSTA region. It varies depending on the location, but that helps in terms of travel. You're not having to travel as far. And how they kind of give you an overview of how these work, depending on the location, SUSTA will bring in a delegation of foreign buyers, and companies that are registered for this inbound trade mission will meet the foreign buyers. You'll set up a table, you'll have your products, and the foreign buyers will go around one-on-one and meet with each one of the companies. They're usually around 30-minute meetings with each one of the companies. And so this is a great way to conduct market research, to get feedback on your product. And we also see many seasoned companies that participate in these events, and they're able to make sales. But I would say the primary goal of these is conducting market research. Then our next, I guess, category of global events are outbound trade missions. So similar to the inbound trade missions, but reversed in the sense that the companies will travel to a particular foreign market and meet with the buyers one-on-one. These are generally around as low as $400, and included in that price is either lodging or round-trip airfare for one person. And so this is a great option for somebody that's kind of ready to take the next step and wants to see as well how their products will be sold, because included in that cost SUSTA will organize tours of the grocery stores, retail outlets, and so you can kind of see firsthand how your product will be marketed, how it will be sold. Many times, how things are sold here in the US is very different than how they are sold abroad. And so you'll be able to kind of take these tours and see that. And so that's included in the cost as well. And similar to the inbound trade missions, you meet with the buyers one-on-one, and you can conduct market research. And then also, Missy will kind of touch on this later, but any of the costs that are not covered within that $400, they may be eligible for our Costshare program. So you can be reimbursed 50% of some of those costs. So you just have to apply for them. Obviously, they would have to be eligible as well. And then our last category of global events in terms of trade missions or trade shows are our pavilions at international trade shows. And so this is for companies that are ready kind of to focus in, hone in on one market specifically, because there's trade shows all over the world in South America, Europe, China. I mean, there's trade shows all over the world. And SUSTA has pavilions at many of these trade shows. And so the beauty, the benefit kind of participating with SUSTA through our pavilion is the cost is significantly cheaper. Many of these trade shows can cost $6,000, upwards of $6,000. But participating and having your own booth within our pavilion can cost as low as $1,200. It obviously varies depending on the trade show itself, but the costs are significantly cheaper. And as well, we have our activity managers. Missy kind of touched on that earlier, that are from our states, and they help in terms of organizing, and they will kind of walk you through the logistics of getting your products over there, getting your booth set up. And so this is you're not on your own. If you were to get your own booth space, you would just be your own booth space, and you would have to figure out all of the logistics of all this on your own. As well, many of these trade shows, like I mentioned, they are in foreign countries where English is not the spoken language. We will provide translators to assist you at the trade shows. And so, kind of like I mentioned, the goal is kind of to have a turnkey option that's ready for you, so you don't have to be worrying about is not just the cost, but just the logistics of getting everything set up. And obviously, as many of you know, with all the travel restrictions that are happening right now, and many of you are working from home, we've kind of rolled out a lot more virtual options. Our first one being our virtual consultations, and these are with our in-country consultants. And so how these work, kind of just to give you an overview, depending on the market, obviously we have these virtual consultations with our consultants in Europe, Canada, Mexico, India, China, and Hong Kong. And so you'll sign up for these once you create a My SUSTA account. And once you do, the in-country consultant will have some questions for you regarding your products, your company, maybe the market itself, or you can ask questions. And so that way, the in-country consultant will then do their own research regarding the products, or maybe answer, so they can have answers to any of your specific questions. Then you'll have a Zoom call that's, I think, 25 minutes, and you will discuss this. And we've received great feedback from all these. It's a way for you to conduct market research from your home. And these are experts within that region. And so these are free as well once you create a My SUSTA account. And so you can register for as many of these as you'd like. And so, yeah, these are a great option. Another one, so these are similar to our inbound and outbound trade missions, but virtually. We begin rolling out our virtual trade missions. A similar setup as our inbound and outbound trade missions, where you'll meet foreign buyers, but it's from the comfort of your home. You're not having to travel. And the beauty of it as well is that how it works is, depending on the market, you send out your products to our in-country consultants. They'll get it to the foreign buyers. so that the foreign buyers can kind of have a firsthand experience, sampling, tasting, seeing your product. So the day that the virtual trade mission takes place, the foreign buyers are meeting with you via Zoom calls, and they're discussing your products. You can explain your product or answer any of the questions that they may have. And it depends on the actual trade mission itself, the virtual trade mission itself, but the shipping of your products to those regions is reimbursable as well. And so these are relatively low cost as well, and it's a great option because travel is so restricted right now, and many people are hesitant to travel. And lastly, obviously similar to this, we've been hosting weekly webinars. And so many of these have been our in-country consultants that have been discussing various topics. Last week, we had our Mexican consultants kind of doing an overview of the market, the current situation, what's going on in terms of the trends or how they're adapting to the circumstances. Next week, we'll have a similar webinar with our Chinese consultants. And so each week we've been hosting webinars and we bring in expert speakers. I remember at the beginning, once COVID, all the restrictions began, we had Euromonitor discussing the changes in terms of the economic market. And so these are a great way to conduct market research as well, and to also ask questions. Similar to, like Missy said, with this webinar, we'll have a Q&A at the end. With each of these webinars, you can ask questions at the end that you may have. And so we discuss in-depth various topics. And so once you create a My SUSTA account, you can register for these, and these are free as well. And so this is kind of a list or a schedule of all of the virtual events that we have coming up right now. I will say with the virtual trade missions, there haven't been many slots open. So once they do roll out, they've been filling up very quick. I know our Mexico virtual trade mission filled up, I think, in one day, maybe. I think it was 1 or 2 days. So if you do see more of these virtual trade missions roll out, I would encourage you to register as soon as possible, because the next time you check, they may not be available. With the virtual consultations, there's a specific date and time that you register for. So it's just seeing what works best with your schedule. But yeah, this is kind of a list of everything that we have coming up. We're really excited. And if you have any questions about any of them, you can feel free to reach out to me or Missy, and we would be happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Alistair. And now I'm going to talk about Costshare. So just really quick to recap on what Alistair was saying regarding global events. All great points, and a lot of times companies start with global events when they're not sure what country market to go to if they don't have a buyer lined up. Whereas if Costshare is meant for companies that do have buyers lined up, you know how you plan on promoting in those international markets. So I can't stress enough where with Costshare, you have to have a marketing plan in place. You have to know where you're going to promote your products, and then we're able to reimburse you 50% for some of these items that are costs that come up that are deemed eligible for reimbursement. So speaking of those costs, the ones that are that are bolded are now the more current ones due to COVID. But I just wanted to briefly talk about ways that companies used to come in for Costshare. Should we get into a new normal, and once trade shows may start opening up or events may start happening with outbound trade missions that Alistair focused on. So I'll briefly talk about those and then highlight a few of the newer ways that companies are coming in to receive reimbursement through Costshare. But in my opinion, these programs do work better together. In an ideal world, just to kind of give you an example of how it could work, if you were to do an outbound trade mission that Alistair mentioned before, where you meet one-on-one with a foreign buyer with SUSTA, for instance, you know, with that program area, they will pay for either your airfare or your hotel. But what they don't pay for, if you were to be approved for cost share, we could reimburse you for the other. So 50% reimbursement for either your hotel or for your flight. If you needed to get marketing materials or brochures printed in a foreign language to better market your products when you're at the outbound trade mission, those things are also reimbursable by 50%. In the past, we've had, and even this year until a lot of things unfortunately got canceled for major reasons, and we understand why, but trade shows were one of the major components that companies used to come in for to receive 50% reimbursement. There's about 30 domestic trade shows that we were able to reimburse companies for in the past. And some of those shows, just to kind of give you an idea of them, were the Natural Products Expo shows, the Summer Fancy Food shows, winter and summer, the National Restaurant Association show, the America's Food and Beverage show that takes place in Miami. For these domestic trade shows, we're only able to reimburse for your booth, any temporary items in your booth, meaning electricity, if you had to purchase the barcode scanner to scan people as they passed your booth, or any shipping of your product samples if you wanted to be featured in the trade show directory. For international trade shows, not only could you be reimbursed for those things, but we could also reimburse you for your cost of your flight, hotel, and per diem for up to 2 people in your company to travel to exhibit at those shows. Again, that's not taking place just as of yet. I do know that some trade shows may start going into a virtual concept of a trade show. We're trying to stay abreast of that as well. And so it's not etched in stone, but hopefully there will be a component where we could hopefully reimburse 50% if a virtual trade show should come up for those international markets, or maybe those approved US trade shows. Again, that hasn't been confirmed yet, but we're trying to keep up with the new normal at SUSTA as well. To highlight some of the other components with cost share, freight samples are a big one that's being used right now. If you needed to hire a temporary worker in your booth during those trade shows, that's something that would have also been reimbursed through the cost share program. Just to highlight some of the ones that companies are coming in for now with our new normal. Advertisement is really big right now. We've had companies that have always taken advantage of that eligible requirement, but now because companies can't physically get out to these trade shows or get out to these markets, there are a lot more things that are coming available for companies to utilize cost share for. So for instance, Instagram is a great tool, or Facebook. If you're doing an international campaign or ad or sponsorship like you see with Kellogg's on here for Instagram, if it's pinpointed in that international market, that's something that we could reimburse for 50% cost share. If you wanted to do a Google search engine, if I had my own popcorn brand, let's say I had Missy's Popcorn Mix, and I'm being sold in Europe, and I wanted anyone who's searching for popcorn to first see my popcorn over anyone else's, or I wanted to be in the top 5 search engines, I could pay for that, and SUSTA would reimburse me 50% because it is focused to that international market. We've had companies come in as of recently to get reimbursed for hiring influencers through social media outlets. If you wanted to take your current website and convert it to a foreign URL, that's something that we could also reimburse for. Being featured in an international magazine, if you wanted to do a moving ad or billboard spot. I think a lot of times now these commercials with the Zoom calls that we're currently doing are becoming very popular. So a commercial that might have cost a lot to do before is now a little bit of an easier concept to do with your cell phone or with your GoPro, and then covering that cost for yourself to go and advertise in that foreign market may not be as expensive because you can kind of do the held hand recording of the video yourself, but we could still reimburse you 50% for the cost of you putting that commercial in that international market through SUSTA's cost share program. So what we're trying to encourage companies to do is, think outside of the normal boxes of coming in for those trade shows, but utilize the other components of cost share that companies really never had the need to use before, but have always been available. If you have any questions regarding any of these eligible expenses, please feel free to give us a call. We'd be happy to go over them in depth. but this is just a great way to stay ahead of the curve and stay on trend with what's happening. We've had webinars in the past where we've had experts come and train us or train companies on social media and what are the best ways to kind of get out there and get seen through these international buyers and customers that are looking for your product. So I highly recommend, if you do not have a SUSTA account yet, to create a My SUSTA account and come on in for those resources that Alistair was saying, where we have these webinars that can educate you on, one, new market trends, and two, what can SUSTA reimburse you for when you're promoting or advertising in the new normal that we have going on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost regarding Costshare. So there are some steps that companies do have to take. Again, you want to make sure that you have a buyer lined up, that you know where you're going to promote or advertise in these international markets before moving forward with Costshare. There is an annual application that companies do have to fill out with SUSTA. It is a $250 annual application fee. I always tell companies that we like to get you rolled out in advance. So every August 1st of the current year, we open up the application for the upcoming year. Sometimes we do, because we do operate on a calendar year from January 1 to December 31st. So sometimes we do have companies that may come in, and they have promotions that they have to do in January. So we want to make sure that they are approved before they conduct those activities, because that is very important. That you must be approved, apply and be approved prior to conducting any activity in order for us to reimburse you. But once you pay the $250 non-refundable application fee and you fill out your application, you're going to indicate what country market you plan on coming in for and what ways you plan on advertising or promoting your products. These are self-generated fields that you do have to fill out. You just have to make sure you know exactly where you plan on spending your marketing dollars and fill it out in our application. And we do have Tina at our office who walks companies through the application process if you need a little bit of assistance with that. But once you come in and you let us know where you plan on spending your marketing dollars and you total it up, let's say you are requesting a minimum of $2,500 in reimbursement, which is the minimum requirement. That means that you're spending $5,000 of your money upfront to market your brand, and you're asking SUSTA to reimburse you $2,500. Companies have to pay SUSTA a 6% administrative fee on that $2,500. So meaning before you conduct the activity, you're going to pay SUSTA $150, conduct the marketing activity, show us proof of the activity, and then we reimburse you. So that is the best component, or the way that we operate in the office. I will say we are able to reimburse on a first come, first served basis. So the faster you fill out your forms and you get them back to us, the faster we can reimburse you. Just to kind of talk about a dollar amount, how much, I know I talked about a minimum of what companies can come in for, but the max is going to be up to $300,000 a year. If you've never exported before and it's your first year with SUSTA, the max is $25,000. If you have exported before, it's going to be $50,000. But after you've been in the program for a year, it's going to be up to $300,000 that we can reimburse you for. Keep in mind that we are here to help. This funding is meant for companies like yourselves. It's important to us to assist you all and get those marketing dollars out the door. And we definitely want to get you into new markets. I know right now with COVID, either a lot of companies that I've spoken to are super busy and overwhelmed trying to keep up with the demand of local supermarkets, or you have companies that are looking for new ways to promote and keep their companies afloat and promote their brands. And this is a great opportunity for you all to think outside of the box and think about possibly going international, because those are sales that are available for you. Like I said, this is an annual application that companies do have to fill out, both for global events and for Costshare. So each year you're going to just come in for global events. You can recertify and make sure that everything is correct. Same thing for Costshare. But that $250 application fee is an annual fee that companies do have to pay. We are here to answer any questions, to guide you along the way. As Alistair mentioned, we do have other events coming up. So our next webinar is going to be with China and Hong Kong. It's going to be a market overview with our consultants from SMH International. It's going to be on Wednesday, June 24th at 8:30 a.m. To help out with the time difference for them as well. But it's very informative. We have staff also like to sit in on the webinars because we learn a lot from them as well. I highly encourage any company that's interested in trying to find a new market to promote your products to definitely learn what's happening from the experts, you know, in the current situation, to find out how to better promote yourselves in these international markets. So I think that's it with our presentation for right now, but I am going to stop sharing the screen and see if we have any additional questions coming up for Alistair and I. So let's see. So I'm seeing one question come up. So a company wanted to know if it's okay if they've never exported before to join with SUSTA. And yes, it is. A lot of times we do have companies that are new to exporting. The point is to make sure that you have sales in these, that you have sales built up already before you come in for the Costshare program. But we work with a lot of companies who have, you know, their products in local supermarkets, like I said, they're in neighboring states, and they're just starting to get into these international markets, and that's what we're here for, to help by reimbursing you all for some of those costs that come up. A major one that I did not mention are label changes. You know, a lot of times if you are asked to be, if you have a buyer asking you to go into an international market, and in order to meet the demands or the qualifications for that market, companies have to change the labels as a requirement. And a lot of times it's a cost that you have to incur. It's not the buyer that's covering that cost. And after working with SUSTA for a while, I've learned that platelets and labels can become very expensive. So through the Costshare program, if it's a requirement for you to get your products in that market, we're able to reimburse you 50% for the cost of the new platelets, the label translations for up to a year of that product to get into that market. So there are great beneficial ways that we can assist with helping companies, even if they've never exported before.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off of that, like we mentioned before, for companies that are new to exporting, we have plenty of educational resources, whether that's kind of what Missy's saying, the virtual consultations. You can discuss maybe your products, what you are wanting to do with them, what kind of plan you may have in mind, or what markets, as well as our webinars. Similar to this webinar, we record all of our webinars, and so you can go back and watch these webinars that highlight various markets or a specific topic, whether that's packaging and labeling or social media trends. You know, there's various educational resources that we have for companies that are in that kind of situation.
And so there was another question that just came in. Is there a yearly fee when you sign a contract? So for the global events program area, there is no fee. You just pay for each event as you participate. So if you wanted to do a virtual trade mission, those are $25. You pay for that and then you're done. If there is, at the time when we had exhibition at international trade shows, you would pay that fee for the international trade show, you would exhibit and you're done. So global events, no annual fee. Costshare, yes, there is an annual fee of $250. And that's when you are signing your contract. Yes, you pay that fee up front. I hope that answered the question. Any other questions before we get going? Please feel free to ask away. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through, but I hope that this webinar was helpful for you all. I will say, if
we do have one more question.
Oh, we do?
I saw that just came through right now. how do you get to the webinars? So once you create a My SUSTA account and you're approved, you'll see a section when you log in that says past webinars. With this webinar, if you want to go back afterwards, we will be sending out personal emails and we'll have a link to this webinar. But for the other webinars that I mentioned, you'll need to create a My SUSTA account, and then you'll see just like a little button on there that says past webinars, and all of them are listed in there.
And we had another question come through as well. Do you have an updated list of shows canceled or still taking place? So it depends on what section. So for global events, I would contact Penny Lawrence or Katie Caballero. We can send your information for the events that we've had. We also do have, we'll make sure when we email everyone after this webinar to send you all the calendar of events that we have for 2020, so you can see the events that would have taken place this year and the events that we still do have coming up. A lot of times the events that we do host are annual events. It's not etched in stone that they're annual, but they tend to kind of stay the same with new buyers coming in with same country markets and same events. But we'll definitely send that to you. And as far as the Costshare section of it, it's taking place. As far as the shows taking place for upcoming events, it's kind of up in the air. We are still, for instance, the America's Food and Beverage Show, which SUSTA has a booth at, and where we're bringing buyers in from South Africa and from Brazil, I believe. That's still on the calendar, and that event is still taking place. It's not until November, so we can't really gauge it too well at this point, but any event I would say that we have from now until maybe August, I feel safe in saying that those probably will not take place. That's why we've opted to go towards the virtual side of it. But the trade shows that are in the fall are taking place. And we'll also make sure to include a list of those US approved trade shows that companies can get reimbursed for through Costshare. Those shows, I've been at SUSTA for 7 years. They have not changed since I've been here. So we will send that list as well. Some of those shows still have not taken place yet, and they have not been canceled, i.e. The Miami's America's Food and Beverage Show. And then there's a private label show that takes place in Chicago in November, and we haven't had any cancellations for that show as well. So Alistair and I will make sure to include both our global events, calendar events for 2020 from SUSTA's point of view, and then we'll make sure to include those US approved trade shows as well. Let's see.
Any other questions?
Any other questions before we get going? One last chance. And feel free to contact us afterwards. You know, if a question comes up, you know, please give us a call. We are working remotely a few days out the week, but we do have cell phones that we can answer anytime during the day, and those numbers will also be included in our signature for our email, so please feel free to give us a call if you wanted to set up a personal, more in-depth consultation about what SUSTA has to offer. But I don't see any more questions coming through, but I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We look forward to helping you and hopefully getting you out there to promote your products and your brands during this time. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.